Welcome to Melt University's 2020 summer program. This year, our virtual intern program will help you build your brand, inform you on a variety of career paths, and introduce you to top executives in sports and marketing. Here's your host, President and CEO of Melt, one of the largest independent sports and event marketing agencies in the country, Vince Thompson.
Welcome, students, virtual Melt University Summer 2020. Today's guest is going to be a fascinating discussion for you, with you, and to help you as we continue to guide you on your career path in a COVID world and a post-COVID world. A very dear friend of mine, Mike Plant, who is the president and CEO of development for the Atlanta Braves. He's a dear friend of mine. He's had an amazing career, a very good human being who always drops what he's doing and help others out. And so we're gonna have a fun conversation today because Mike Plant has had an amazing career, amazing life story. Not only hugely successful for many years with the Atlanta Braves, led the transition for when the stadium was at the TED in downtown, and the beautiful, pristine facility, the Battery, and Truist Park now. As he led the development of that, it's basically a city within a city out in Cobb County, which is amazing. So many career opportunities out there. But the interesting thing is that Mike has also another fascinating background. He was a member of the 1980 U.S. Olympic speed skating team in Lake Placid, New York. He was a 6-time member of the U.S. World Championship speed skating team. He has served on many national and international Olympic committees, and so we're going to get a couple of bites on the apple today, both talking about careers in Olympics, how you pursue that, also careers in the professional baseball industry. As he and I were talking a little earlier, this all is going to come back. We're going to weather the storm. We're going to help you prepare those tools. Also had an amazing career at Turner Sports. As I recall, you worked on the games in Russia. I think it was the friendship games. Anyway, Ted Turner we'll talk about that as well. Ted Turner had this amazing vision, the Goodwill games, to do the Goodwill games. Yep. And so Mike Plant is a very dear friend. And Mike, we really appreciate your time today. Great human being, and we welcome you to virtual Melt University.
Thank you, Vince. My pleasure, and I love an opportunity, obviously, to talk to young people. And my kids might not value my
right.
But hopefully some of your participants will. I always say, hey, free advice. It's good to paid for it. But no, we're fortunate that you and I and many of our friends and colleagues, once you've spent a few decades in this business, you have an opportunity to learn a lot, see a lot, listen, and learn certainly, and now try to pay that forward, obviously, to the people that are going to follow us and continue to build this great sports business that we've been part of and make it bigger and better.
Well, the Braves obviously to me is one of the best organizations in professional sports. I've been a Braves fan for 50 years. When I was growing up in Lower Alabama, our annual summer vacation was a trip to see the Atlanta Braves during the summer. We'd stop off at Callaway Gardens, and then we'd come and watch the Braves at Fulton County. And kind of how I got my start is that I would write my great sports heroes, and I still have it in my office. But in the days, the sports heroes would write you back a personal autograph. And so one of my most cherished prized possessions, is my autograph from Hank Aaron. And Mike, you'll get a kick out of this. Of course, it would never happen now. But when I was 11 years old, I talked my way into the dugout, and I've got a photograph with Ralph Garr in the pregame. And so professional sports has influenced my life many, many times. And so, but I don't want to short shred the fact that you were an Olympian. So growing up, and I don't recall where you grew up.
Wisconsin.
You grew up in Wisconsin. So obviously that's an environment given to ice skating and speed skating, but early on, did you know, not only do you have a gift for speed skating and a passion for speed skating, but I've never heard your pre-Olympian story. Share that with our audience.
Yeah, just briefly, I did what every kid did back then. I played basketball, football, baseball, and I grew up with, since I was like 6 years old until I was like 12, the same four kids in my neighborhood. And honest to God's truth, we never lost a game in anything. I,
Wow.
I had no idea until I got into speed skating at 12 years old, which was very late, highly technical sport, skating on a small little thin blade. I had no idea what losing was because we'd never lost. We won everything.
Right.
And so I thought that's the way it was, and my brother started skating the year before. We, at that point where I grew up in the little suburb of Milwaukee, it was the only refrigerated 400-meter speed skating track in the country then.
Wow.
There aren't many more today. Fortunately, they're all indoors, which makes it a lot nicer than sometimes I skated then when it was 15 below zero outdoors.
Wow.
But that he got into it. He talked me into trying it the next year. I went out and spent 2 weeks training, technically learning how to skate. Entered my first meet and got last in the races I skated in. And I thought, well, that wasn't very much fun. And, I was like, I'm not going to do that again. And then my dad was like, well, is that it? You put their work into it and seemed like you're making progress. And I was like, well, I got last. And kind of talked me into saying, well, you don't want to be a quitter. I mean, this is where you show who you are. This is where you show your character. This is how you show your resolve. And, and it kind of embedded that into me a little bit. And, 4 years later, I make my first world team and started living in Europe when I'm 16 years old. And I quit everything else that I was really good at and said, you know what, this is something I just can't pick up and be a natural talent at. It taught me a lot about life and perseverance, hard work. I mean, it was just all I did. I trained twice a day for 50 weeks a year.
Holy chowder.
Controlled my whole life, but it ended up being my launch pad into what I do today, and obviously teaching me a lot about myself and obviously my career. So it's been great. It was great.
So let's go back to that first skating venture, because one lesson that I'm trying to impart and we're trying to impart on our students, and obviously they're living it right now as we all are living it with COVID-19. You're going to get thrown off the saddle. You're going to encounter obstacles in life. It's not a question of if, but when, and obviously we're all living it right now. But but talk about your lessons on getting back up on that saddle. You talked about your father, but impart some wisdom to our kids here.
Yeah, I mean, look, a couple things. You're going to, unless you win the lottery or your mom and dad enable you for the rest of your life, you're going to have to find a career. And we always say, Vince has probably told you this, you don't want a job. I mean, a job's fine if you're happy just going Monday through Friday and putting your 8 hours in and getting a paycheck because you have some other vision or path that you're going to go down. Like you're going to buy a lottery ticket and win the lottery. But I would tell you that the chances you doing that, maybe a $20 win might be okay, but not the $20 million win. So so you have to find that path and find something that you're going to get up every day and really enjoy. And the bottom line is that it's going to be hard to get there to that level of success where you can look in the mirror and say, you know what, I'm in a really good place. I feel really good about what I'm doing. I like what I do. Matter of fact, I don't want to tell anyone, but I might do this job for free. I'm having so much fun. I like people. I like the challenge. And, for me, I look back on my skating career knowing that I found all of a sudden something that I wasn't a natural at. And as I said earlier, now it's a challenge. Of course, having an older brother goading me probably helped. But it also became this defining moment for me to understand what is my resolve to be successful at something and put the work into it. And as I said, to persevere through challenging times. Technically, I wasn't a great skater at first, and it's it was a challenge. I wasn't gifted in picking up a baseball bat and throwing up 3-pointers. It was different, so, but, I have always said to my kids, look, I very, very early on knew how to define my standard of excellence. And everyone has to find their own. I can't tell you what yours is. You have to, define that standard in what you do, and come up with what's acceptable to you. And I don't care if it's sweeping the floor or washing the car.
Right.
I mean, I know what my standard is. When you come to me and say, "Do you think that's good enough?" I'm not going to give you an answer. You have to figure that out yourself. And in your career, and in your job, and in your game plan for your career and life, you're going to have to make sure you have a pretty high standard of excellence if you want to keep going up the ladder and being successful in your career. So that is a big thing, that going around in a circle and taking a left every 100 meters for a good part of my young life really taught me.
I think you hit on, know how to define your standard of excellence. I love that. One thing that we talk to our kids about as well is that pursue your passion. You may get ridiculed for it. You may get told no. We say the letters NO don't spell no. Those first two letters of not yet. But talk about, I had a passion for sports. I loved to play it. I wasn't very good, but I loved to watch it. One of my greatest memories ever is watching, Hank Aaron, hit 715. And then I love to write about it. I love to write my heroes. And that was my passion. And those were my dual passions when I got to Auburn. Talk about how passion can define your path.
Well, I think passion also, when you look at on the field or off the field, it also correlates strongly to a game plan. So I trained every day, 4, 6, sometimes 8 hours a day, but I just didn't get up in the morning and decide what I was going to do. I knew when I was going to train, eat, sleep, science, you name it. It was all laid out every week and basically for the year. And so that game plan was what made me get up and tick every day. And it created drive for me. And days that you were tired, you were like, look, I got to put 80 miles on the bike in the morning and do a 3-hour weight workout this afternoon. And now I look at from a career standpoint in the business world and where you want to go as a person to follow that passion. I'm a big believer in, if you want to be an athletic director, you want to fly the moon, you want to be a teacher or principal, you just don't leave college and let that kind of happen. You go and figure out what is the game plan that it's going to take to be an athletic director or the principal of a school. I don't know that. I never wanted to be an athletic director. I know I would work hard to figure it out, and I'd start with trying to get in front of, like you did, Vince, writing letters, getting in that dugout. How am I going to get in front of a couple athletic directors that I can learn from them? I can listen, understand their story, understand their path. What are all the things they had to do to achieve that result? And then I'm going to work backwards from there and say to myself, all right, now I know the stepping stones to achieve that level of success. And guess what? It's going to be really freaking hard. It's going to be hard. It's going to take your high-end pursuit of excellence and a lot of what you might not think you have in you. But 10, 15 years down the road, you're sitting on the top of the throne and you're the athletic director of a school. You're going to say, you know what? That was worth it. I'm where I want to be. I followed my passion and I did it with a game plan.
So post Olympics, you obviously had passion, quote unquote, for sports, and then you start your own business. So you obviously had obviously a self-starter discipline initiative as an entrepreneur, medalist sports. Talk about that business, kind of what that experience, and then how it formed you into, obviously, working for Ted Turner, working for the Olympics, working for the Braves. Talk about that.
Yeah, I think, one of the things sports does is it gives you a high level of confidence, belief in yourself. And again, it doesn't matter how many times you're on the podium or not, but certainly I learned a high level of confidence and to use some gifts that I had and obviously instilled in me from my parents. Eric Heiden, my teammate, wins 5 gold medals in the 1980 Olympic Games. Never be done.
I remember that well.
Yeah, but in 1980, no one knew what sports marketing was. I mean, Vince, think about it. Sponsorship, that was a foreign word,
Yep.
so it really didn't exist. But I'm 21 years old and I'm going to keep skating for a couple more years my brother was on the Olympic team as well. And Dan Jansen was on that team as a young guy and a bunch of other guys. And there's no real resource. So Eric helped me utilize his name, and I bang out on my parents' electric typewriter a
Right.
proposal to the Atari Corporation. And lo and behold, 2 months later, I'm in front of Raymond Cassar, the chairman of the board and CEO of Atari on Nob Hill in San Francisco, and having a dinner. And I brought Eric to the dinner, and I knocked down a $375,000 deal.
Wow.
And so now I have to do something with it. So I become player, coach, manager. I'm the guy responsible for working with their marketing team and how to activate this branding play for them. And so it was I was drinking from the hose. But when they said, well, who's your marketing guy? It was like, well, you're looking at him. I didn't know anything about how
Right.
at that point. But don't be afraid. Step up to the plate. Say, yep, I got this. And again, it goes back to, I guess, some of my characteristics, and I would encourage all of you to think the same way, is be a sieve for information and don't abuse it. And where people, Vince and I have heard is, oh yeah, knowledge is power. Yeah, it might be power, but use it in a good way. Don't think that you gotta chew people up and spit them out, and that's the only way you're going to get ahead. No, be a sieve for learning and listening, and when you can spend time with people and just gather more information and intelligence, and then use it in a really positive way to advance your career or your invention or your business. That's all a positive way of using information. And so I was just a sieve for just learning from people.
Well, we tell the kids now, and they know it. They're the most sophisticated consumer in the history of the world. They also possess in the palm of their hands access to all the information that they could ever want. I mean, in the old days, I had to go to the library and get an encyclopedia. They hear this all the time: encyclopedia, Yellow Pages, or a resource guide to find a guy like Mike Plant or Ted Turner. Now, you have this amazing power in your hand. You have these tools such as LinkedIn, but still old-fashioned work, discipline, elbow grease. To as you said, you banged out on a electric typewriter this proposal to Atari, which, by the way, I didn't even know that story, which is brilliant. And so you do this for a while. Tell me how you encountered the great Ted Turner. And for you listeners who don't know, the students who don't know, Ted Turner is one of the greatest entrepreneurs ever. He basically founded the cable television business and CNN and TBS and America's Team. And one of my, still on my bucket list to shake his hand. But how did you eventually encounter the great Ted Turner? Because back in the day, cable was still largely unproven. It wasn't in 100 million homes. And then Ted had this vision to sort of unite the world at the Goodwill Games.
He did. And so I, once my Olympic career was over, I became very active and very involved in the U.S. Olympic Committee, the business structure of it. And so I ended up being, not only on the board and the executive committee, I was the chairman of the athletes group, which was one athlete representing every sport, controlled 25% of the voting block. And my group initiated a lot of the funding programs that are still existing today for athletes, direct monthly support and health insurance and all those things that we brought to the forefront. And then got very involved internationally in the movement and that, because I was asked to chair all these different groups. People saw some leadership skills in me, and next thing I know, I'm going 45 weekends a year. I'm rocking and rolling, and I ended up working for two of the sports. I ended up being the associate executive director of USA Cycling in 1986. I had raced as a pro for a couple years at the latter part of my speed skating career. I started racing bikes when I was 13 because I had to do 2-3 workouts on a week on a bike. So I said, what? I'm going to kill two birds with one stone. I'm going to ride races because they're fast and hard and you can win a few bucks. And so my career kind of launched there, and in 1986, Greg LeMond wins the Tour de France for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I work with a group to build the first pro cycling stage race on the East Coast United States, where terrain, markets, and population of people are. And then I can't find anyone, so we ended up getting a title sponsor, got NBC to put up 6 hours of television, and I couldn't find anyone to run this venture that didn't think like a cyclist or just that it was a bike race. I was going to build an international sporting event. And so I ended up basically saying to this group, led by a sponsor, led by Donald Trump, his company, I said, no, I'm not working for you guys. I'm going to be the partner in this venture. And I'm just not putting up any equity, but I'm going to make sure this thing goes off. So first Tour de Trump in 1989 was wildly successful. Next one in 90. And then I ended up doing a 7-year deal with the DuPont Corporation.
Mm-hmm.
In 95, I sell my company to Turner Broadcasting. Why? Because a guy named Harvey Schiller, who ended up being the best man in my wedding, his dad, he's the dad of my co-CEO here at the Braves today, Derek Schiller.
Well, he's one of my long-term virtual and mentors. Yeah.
So Harvey
from his days at the SEC, Dr. Schiller is an amazing human being. And we're going to get back to the importance of mentors in just a moment. So finish the story.
Yeah. So Harv and I got to know each other in the mid '80s through the Olympic movement. He was ended up being the CEO there, as I'm kind of moving up the ladder and chairing and being the president of all these different things. And so he took over as the president of Turner Sports in '94, and then right away says, "Hey, this Goodwill Games is a financial disaster," and basically said, "Mike, you got to come and run these things. You know how to plan and prepare and execute events." And I said, "Harv, there's no way in the world I'm doing that. That thing's a disaster," because it was an embarrassment. It was Ted was passionate about it. He put his money into it. He didn't care about losing $40 million on the Goodwill Games every 4 years. His whole objective was use sport in a very positive way to break down barriers between U.S. and Russian athletes and not have bombs pointed at each other. And he was right. I mean, there was a lot.
What an amazing vision.
Yeah, absolutely. And so bottom line is I sell my company to Turner Broadcasting in 95. I come down here. I run the Goodwill Games. I blow them up. From the first 2 weeks on the job, I thought I was done with my job in 2 weeks when I walked into Ted Turner's office and he says, "Okay, here's the new guy." And Harvey set me all up. "Hey, Mike's an Olympian and this is all the things he's done in his career." And Ted said, "Okay, where are we at, pal?" This is in preparation in 95 for the 98 Goodwill Games in New York City that Ted said they're going to New York City like a year earlier. I showed him a blank piece of paper. And he looked at it and he said, "Well, there's nothing on there." And I said, "Exactly." I said, "Let me tell you what you need, what we need to do here, and how I need to change these things to make them better." And I went through a 20-minute presentation, and he was speechless. And
which is probably the first time Ted Turner's ever been speechless.
Yeah, I told him all the sports I was going to whack out. I told him we were going to totally restructure the deal with the Russians because they were stealing tens of millions of dollars from them. I told him it's not about all these pretty medals on your desk, Ted. With all due respect, there's only one medal that counts, and it's an Olympic medal. So we're going to have a big $6 million prize list. And, I said things like, "Ted, your sport of, sailing, I love to sail, but it's like watching grass grow. I mean, it's not a television content driven sport." So, I thought that was my first day and my last day. But
wow. So
it teaches.
You were fear, but you were What's the takeaway in this?
Yeah, the takeaway there is, again, I came in with knowledge. I knew what a disaster his games were. I knew all the flaws from '94 in St. Petersburg. No ice in the pool. No, green water in the swimming pool. No ice on the ice rink. They were showing on Tuesday night the same show that they showed on Monday night. I mean, no one's watching that in that age. So, and I could have gone on and on, but I told him as I came in there with, I understood what the issues, challenges, and problems were, but I gave him solutions, and I could back it up with the facts, and I could back it up with my own experiences and intelligence. And I looked at him and I said, "If you let me do this, I'm telling you, we are going to have a successful event. But these are the changes I need to make. You just can't roll back out there and think that everything was perfect, because it wasn't." And he did. He looked at me, and I remember saying to him when it was an uncomfortable, delay in anyone saying anything in the room. And I said, Ted, I don't know what you expected out of me today, but I was not going to come in here and bullshit you about where this.
Wow.
And he looked at me and he said, no. He said, I'm glad you didn't. He said, I got enough people sitting around this table that do that enough already. And so from that day, Ted and I became very good friends. I traipsed around the world with him. He knew he could always trust me. He knew that I always listened, but he knew I was going to hold the line when I told him I changed the year that we did the event. I started the winter games for the first time. I changed the structure around. And, we were on our way to being profitable from losing 40 plus million 3 times in a row before AOL came in and blew the whole company up. So,
well, there are some and students, and I want you guys to listen to this, and I want you to re-listen to it, because the amazing lessons and key takeaways in that story that Mike just told is that he was honest, he was forthright, he was honest in his convictions, he stood true to his values, but he had a plan, and he presented that plan in a very respectful manner and in an authentic manner. We talk about authenticity, and one of the greatest, entrepreneurs, businessmen of all time, Ted Turner, listened. And so and this is a great lesson for our young kids. And so obviously you had a very successful turn with the Goodwill Games. And then obviously a lot of people don't remember at the time, Ted Turner also owned the Atlanta Braves and the Hawks. The Braves were America's team, and Superstation TBS, Channel 17. So you go to work with Ted in the Atlanta Braves organization. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, as AOL came in and really kind of mucked up this company, Time Warner bought Turner Broadcasting in late '95, August of '95, shortly after I started. But we're smart enough to let the Turner executive management team continue to run Turner because it became the cash cow for the enterprise. And then Jerry Levin, the CEO and chairman of Time Warner, merges our company with AOL, but gives AOL the lead in the structure, and that you find a dozen books on it. It was one of the worst.
Yeah, one of the worst business deals of all time.
Of all time, yeah. I mean, this little kind of .com company takes over a $45 billion, multimedia company, because they were going to show us how television is dead, and the world of content that we're all going to know for the rest of our life was going to be everything that was going to be internet based. And granted, it is definitely, in our life today, definitely in your life, but traditional TV and media and content still exist. So anyways, Ted got kind of moved out, but in '03, new chairman CEO comes into Turner Broadcasting, a guy named Phil Kent, and Phil and I had become friends, actually traipsing around the world with Ted because he was in charge of CNN International, and I had done a few business deals with him. And so in June of '03, he asked me to come see him, and he's two months on a job, and he says, "Hey, Braves have just lost $100 million in the last 3 years. You need to go in there and run this business." And I said, "Whoa, let me give that some thought." And then about a month later, I had kind of said, "Okay, let's look at a plan and the timing." He had to move a few people out. That was going to take a little time. And then he asked me about, this guy, Derek Schiller? I was like, yeah, since he was 14 years old.
Right.
Best man at my wedding. So he said, "What about you two going in there together?" I said, "Perfect." And so Derek and I have been here 17, 18 years. And, we took a business that lost $100 million in '01, '03. And by '06, we were in the black and making money. And we've never looked back. And it's been said, I spent 8 years at Turner Field trying to create a mixed-use development to create a transformational destination and go beyond just our 81 games a year and draw people there in the millions beyond games, and never could move that out of the bureaucratic government structure of the city. So was able to get this deal done in the heat of the night and shocked Atlanta. And here we are just, notwithstanding a little bit of a blip from a pandemic, we're cooking. We're cooking. We're going to cook again.
Well, every summer you guys have been so gracious. You host us for a field trip. That's one of the things we're missing this summer, even though we're going, virtual. Is that we get a great field trip to the Battery, a great field trip to 680, a great field trip to Truist Park. It's now Truist Park with Suntrust, and hopefully we'll be able to do that again. But before we transition into opportunities, you talked about Dr. Schiller, one of my great heroes, business heroes. Talk about the importance to our students and our listeners, the importance of mentors in your life and their life, and what are the benefits of having some great mentors?
Well, I think you and I would both agree. When you're young, you'd like to think, as we try to make sure our parents know, that we know everything.
Right.
And that's why your parents years later, when you have to humble yourself and say, yeah, I've learned a lot and I didn't really know everything, they get a good chuckle out of it. So and then you'll do that with your own kids one day. So but like I said, I look back, and early age, I was fortunate. I got thrown into some pretty incredible situations, and it was because of what I was doing. It wasn't because of who I was, but knowing that I was put into these incredible situations with people that were successful and knowledgeable, that I was basically going to do what I could to learn from them. And so here I'm a speed skater going around in a circle, getting a few attaboys because I'm making teams, Olympic and world teams, but I'd go hang with the suits, and I was not intimidated by it. I saw it as an opportunity. There's things they wanted to know about my world, living in Europe 5-6 months a year, and what it was like to be a world-class athlete. And I'm trading business cards with these guys, and a lot of times the skaters would say, "What are you doing over there talking to those guys?" And I said, "You guys don't really get this, do you? We're just going around in a circle, and all it's going to get us a few attaboys. I'm going to learn from these guys. I want to connect with these guys."
Brilliant.
And so it's you utilizing those opportunities as much as you possibly can. And guess what? You can learn the good and the bad. You get to know some people, and you see different traits that are different than your values, where they are, and you're going to learn that part of life too. So yeah, I think having a mentor or someone that you can always kind of talk to, or a circle of people that you can call on. I've had lots and lots of young people that I've stayed in contact with, and it's just been my way of paying it forward, and I've told them, you're not going to be a pain. I'm happy to do it because I want to do what I can to help you succeed.
Well, and I think you just hit the nail on the head. Is that that quest to learn, that quest to have mentors, that quest to really never stop learning and growing. And so that's a nice segue into, you've been very involved, obviously, with a lot of amazing things in your career. But let's talk about, and I want to use sort of the Atlanta Braves as the example. If there's a young rising college student, and I always say the campus is the ultimate professional laboratory, your experience, my experience, and sports information at Auburn and all that. But where do you see the careers in the industry of baseball, the business of baseball, professional baseball? Obviously, there's traditional careers, but as we're learning during these podcasts this summer, there's so many new and emerging places. And obviously, your organization, the Braves organization, is very sophisticated in understanding your fans and your consumers and the experience and all those types of things. But where are some areas that we might not be thinking about that our kids could be looking into and as pursued as their students, and then when they come out?
Yeah, well, I mean, you probably, again, talking to others of our colleagues, that there's so much more business intelligence and analytics that are going into not just the baseball side or the on the field side with all the sports. It's also off the field. 5 years ago we had one guy in strat planning, and now we have a team of 8. 5 years ago we didn't have social media, and now we have a team of, I think, 6 or 7 that they lead, and as part of our marketing structure. So I think one of the big things, and again, I'm an old guy, so I'm hoping that all this pandemic stuff doesn't change
Mm-hmm.
all of us forever. But the food and beverage side of this business is going to change immensely.
Yeah, huge.
And to be innovative in that space. I mean, the old days, Vince, of sitting in seat 8 and saying, "Hey, pass me down 2 beers and 2 hot dogs." I don't think anyone's passing anything anymore.
No, it's over. Not for a while.
Not for a while, So yeah, how can you innovate in the technology part of the world in the food and beverage space? I mean, that's going to be another one that we've talked a lot about. But this look, I always tell people this is a big business because it's in our lives every day. We read about it, we see it, it's on TV. We all participate, usually, and most of us do in some form or fashion in sports, both recreational and competitively, and physical fitness wise, and then you see these billions and billions of dollars of numbers thrown out there, and so it looks like, because of all that, it's huge. The bottom line is, at the core of it, there's not a ton of people working in this business.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like Turner Broadcasting had 12,000 employees. We have 500 that run this organization,
and by the way, a lot of people want to be in your business and our business. A lot more than the positions are open for.
Exactly. And look, the truth of the matter is that I think these businesses are going to get a little smaller because of this.
I absolutely agree.
And that's just the way it's probably going to be for a while. But my thing is, I tell people this all the time. It starts with, as I said earlier, you have to have a game plan. You cannot just vote or just coast and expect things to happen. I will just tell you that 10 years from now, you will be disappointed. Probably there's a chance you're going to be disappointed of where you are. If you just kind of roll the dice and say, I'll just see how this all goes. You have a game plan, you get aggressive with it, you spend time with it, you're disciplined in your approach to have those stepping stones up that career ladder where you need to be. I'm pretty confident you can get there. Now, you need to combine that with a couple things. One, you need to have respect. And it's not just respect for Vince or Mike Plant because we've got these big high affluent titles.
Right.
It's mutual respect in a workplace with where people come from, their opposing, divergent views, that you're not a bunch of lawyers going in the room, sitting around a table and saying, okay, let's go see who's the smartest guy in the room right out of the box because I went to Yale and you went to Idaho,
Right.
You've got to be accountable and you have to be responsible. This is, like I said, standard of excellence. You come into these environments and that we count on you to be part of a team that's going to deliver and execute, be here on time, bring your A game every day, and be prepared to, put some hours in. That's the business of sport. Says 9:00, you better be here at 8:30. And you know what? There's lots of times, most of the time I leave here after midnight, 1 a.m. in the morning. I get up in the morning, I do it all over again. It's part of our world, But if people know that you're accountable and responsible, that goes a long way. And then, collaborate, communicate well with people, bring that work ethic to the table every day. You add all those things in the bucket, and we all very quickly see how that person separates himself from the pack. They just do. And we all talk about it. Say, hey, so-and-so, yeah, pretty sharp young lady or pretty sharp guy, And it just, you transcend everybody else by just having that overall package together. And as I said, I don't see this being that hard if you're committed to it and you have a game plan coming in.
Well, you said an amazing amount, a ton to unpack. Headline, attitude, and effort. You can see it a mile away. You see it. I see it. We live in an instant gratification society. We all look at a Mark Zuckerberg, who happened to be a unicorn, but all of us, you, me, we still pay our dues. We still grind. We still overcome obstacles. We still get told no. But I think you just hit and I love the respect piece, because one of my pet peeves is if I'll get an unsolicited resume or job application that says, "Hey, I'm Joe Smith, and here's my resume, and I need to make XYZ dollars." I flush it immediately.
Yeah.
They've not done any homework. They are, what I tell our kids and our students is, every encounter and every communication is a job audition, and you better treat that, because you're showing Mike Plant the type of employee that you're going to be in the audition process, and there's no way you're going to make the cut. And so segue into that. What does a successful job seeker do that you've seen to get a job within the Atlanta Braves organization? What gets your attention? What stands out? What give our listeners, our students, some tricks of the trade, or some tips that you see from your position?
Well, being prepared is number one. I mean, you can just tell right away how prepared someone comes in and understanding our company, our history, our leadership, our financials, even some of the hiccups maybe that we had. Just that they've done their homework to know that a lot about our organization, and then they come in with not just telling me how enthusiastic they are about loving the team or loving, baseball, or I want to work sports. I'm like, what are you bringing to the table? I mean, otherwise, just go buy a ticket. I love it that you love our team, but hey, go buy a ticket and get a beer. What are you doing to come into this organization based on all the research and the knowledge that you've been able to collect? And here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm bringing to the table every day to be part of this team and make this organization even better. This is who I am as a person. This is when I dig down deep. This is what you're going to get from me. This is how, like I said, this is how I know how to execute. This is how I know how to collaborate. I communicate well, and just all those touch points that you can reference back to things that that might in your research be a challenge for our organization. How you can how are you going to make us better?
I was going to say, what we're hearing from our guest is that show how you can bring value to Mike Plant and the Braves organization. That's correct, right?
Yep, absolutely, 100%, 100%.
So as we wrap up this fascinating podcast, and we so appreciate your time, are there any go-to resources, books, podcasts that you feel like that you would like that have influenced you, or that you've read or listened to, that you'd like to share with our students and our listeners today that would benefit them in their quest and their search for this job in a post-COVID
world? You know what, Vince? I was thinking, I went to Antarctica in January, and I came back, and I should have done this research before I went on Shackleford, but I didn't. I did it afterwards. That's the last book I read, and then I've watched every documentary on him since.
Amazing.
It is a fascinating story of unbelievable perseverance and a will to live.
Oh yeah.
And that to me is like I said, I think one of the words that defines me probably more than any is perseverance. Is that learn how to persevere through really challenging times, which these are challenging times right now. And I've always said, look, I'm going to get to the finish line. I mean, I don't care what I do. I built a company in China for 3 years. I made 36 trips in 3 years back and forth to China.
Wow.
I loved it when people told me that was crazy. There's no way you can do that, Mike. And for me, every time I hear more, Mike, you can't do that, I'm like, oh man, game on. Here we go. This Truist Park in the Battery. I sat in a room full of 100 plus developers about 3 months before we opened. And I said, look, this is the second time I met with this group. And the first time was a couple of years ago, and we were showing some pretty pictures and some pretty renderings. And I said, and I know there was a lot of smirking and chuckling in the room when I told everyone there, well, we're going to get this done by April 2017. And I said, so raise your hand if you were one of those guys, no offense taken. And the whole room did,
Wow. Yeah.
I said, exactly. I said, that's because you couldn't do what we did. And we did this because I was able to build a team of people and lead them with a vision and lead them with kind of a strong, unteetering objective that we were going to succeed. And I said to every one of them frequently, you got to bring it every day. It's going to be really hard, but it's going to be one of the most rewarding things you're going to do in your life. And to me, I look back on that, and I know they all have the ability to beam with pride when they drive by here or they come here with their family and their kids. And everyone should have an opportunity to do stuff like that in their life, is to be able to say, look, I was part of that. That was one of the hardest things I ever did. But that becomes just, once again, an incredible accomplishment. But another, as a young person, that's a launch pad for you that you're going to write your ticket after that. So those are opportunities you got to go out there and make happen.
Well, what I would encourage our students and our listeners, if you haven't read the history of the development of the Battery and Truist Park and Suntrust Park, I'm sure many of our listeners have enjoyed many, many good times out there, including myself. But what they may not realize is that they're listening to the gentleman that really was the, along with my dear friend Derek Schiller, was the conductor, the symphony orchestra conductor of putting that all together. And if you have the opportunity to go visit, you haven't. If you have the opportunity to interview for a job with the Braves organization, if you have that opportunity to really, finally get to Mike Plant, I mean, you're going to know what an amazing, opportunity it will be. And Mike, you have no idea how much we appreciate your time. We value your time. We value this amazing advice and input. We are getting tons of positive responses from kids and their parents. I'm hoping that they will seek you out and write you a personal note. We know that's happening a lot, or seek you out on LinkedIn or other sources and other places. But Mike Plant, President, CEO of Development for the Atlanta Braves, obviously, what an amazing career. Olympian, successful businessman, successful international businessman, the Goodwill Games, working with one of the greatest entrepreneurs of all time, Ted Turner and Turner Sports, the Atlanta Braves organization, development of the Battery. I mean, and as listeners, as you can hear, the authenticity and the kindness and the empathy in his voice, and he and I certainly share a lot of values together, and hopefully I'll be able to bump fists or elbows with him sometime back at the Battery sometime soon. But Mike, we really appreciate. We know you're busy, got a lot going on with MLB and the shortened season and everything, but so we so appreciate your time and sharing your wisdom and advice with our kids of Melton University.
Well, thank you, Vince. I enjoyed it. I know the first time was in person, and I look forward to doing that again. And just to to all the kids out there, look, there's tons of opportunities out there, but I would just encourage you to, again, dig deep, finding yourself those great values and attributes that you have, because you definitely have them, and put them to good use, build a game plan, and you'll be successful in whatever you do. It's a proven formula. I grew up in a little 900 square foot house, and exceeded my expectations, and I don't let any of this define who I am. I mean, my dad always told me early on, don't become a legend in your own mind. So I have not forgotten my roots, and that's why I'm willing to continue to give back to good people. And Vince is a great friend, and I really admire what he's doing to help you guys. So my pleasure to be part of it this afternoon.
Well, thank you. And so students, listen to this, rewind it, listen to it again. There's so many great nuggets of advice. So we keep rolling. Summer 2020, virtual Melt University. Thank you today for listening, and thank you, Mike Plant.
You bet. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Vince. Hope you enjoyed today's virtual class. We'll be back soon with another edition of Melt University 2020.